Did you know there was a Brexit all the way back in the 80s, a football version of it? Imagine a time when English football's finest were banned from Europe's grandest stage. When the likes of Liverpool, Manchester United and many more were not able to compete on the brightest of European nights. Welcome to football, the beautiful game. Today, we're uncovering the untold story of why English football teams couldn't compete in Europe during the 80s. So hit subscribe and strap yourself in for another lesson in football history. English football teams were banned from European competitions following the Heysel Stadium disaster on May 29, 1985. The ban was imposed by UEFA as a result of the tragic events that occurred during the European Cup final between Liverpool and Juventus at Heysel Stadium in Brussels. Rioting by fans led to a wall collapse, resulting in the deaths of 39 people, mostly Juventus supporters. The ban officially began in 1985 and lasted for 5 years, until it was lifted in 1990. However, Liverpool received an additional year of suspension, meaning they were not allowed to participate in European competitions until the 1991 to 1992 season. The lifting of the ban marked the return of English clubs to European football, setting the stage for their resurgence in the 1990s. The Heysel disaster was the culmination of years of escalating violence and hooliganism associated with English football fans. This issue had plagued English football domestically and internationally, leading to numerous incidents of violence and disorder. The disaster also brought attention to the poor safety standards in many football stadiums. Heysel Stadium itself was in a dilapidated state, and the lack of adequate security and crowd control measures contributed to the tragedy. There was significant pressure from other European countries and football associations to take action against English football. The disaster at Heysel was seen as a tipping point, necessitating strong measures to prevent such tragedies in the future. The ban had a profound impact on English football. Clubs lost the opportunity to compete at the highest level in Europe, which affected their finances, reputation, and ability to attract top talent. Domestically, the period saw a decline in the quality of football, as the best players sought opportunities in other European leagues where they could compete in continental competitions. Meanwhile, things were also changing regarding the safety of football stadia in England. The Heysel disaster, followed by the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, prompted significant changes in how football was managed and regulated in the UK. The Taylor Report, published after the Hillsborough disaster, led to the introduction of all-seater stadiums and improved safety standards, fundamentally changing the landscape of English football. Back to the European ban, however, English league sides were suffering and really missing out on European football. Several English clubs were performing exceptionally well domestically and might have been strong contenders in European competitions during those years of exile. Liverpool won the English First Division in the 1985 to 86 and 1987 to 88 seasons, and were runners-up in the 1988 to 89 and 1989 to 90 seasons. They also had stars like Kenny Dalglish and Ian Rush in their ranks. Liverpool's history in European competition, with 4 European Cups by 1984, suggests they had the experience and quality to win more titles. Their strong domestic performances during the ban years make them prime candidates for additional European success. Crosstown rivals Everton were actually enjoying some success around that time too. And the Blues feel hard done by that their 80s stars didn't have a chance to win the European Cup. Everton's 1984-85 season was particularly impressive. With a dominant league campaign and a European Cup Winners' Cup victory, had they been allowed to compete, they could have built on this success in the European Cup. Especially considering their form and the quality of their squad, they won 2 First Division titles in 3 years in the mid to late 80s. Arsenal won the League Cup in the 1986-87 season and famously clinched the First Division title in dramatic fashion at Anfield against Liverpool on the last day of the 1988-89 season. While Arsenal and Manchester United too were not as dominant as Liverpool and Everton. Their cup successes and strong league performances suggest they could have been competitive in Europe by the time the ban was lifted in 1990. English clubs face the challenge of reintegrating into European competition. The landscape of European football had changed, with Italian, Spanish, and German clubs dominating. It took several years for English clubs to regain their competitiveness in Europe. The 1990s saw a resurgence, highlighted by Manchester United's UEFA Champions League victory in 1999. But that is a long way back to the big time. English clubs needed time to adjust to the higher level of competition and the tactical advancements made by their European counterparts. Eventually, English teams would come back stronger. The formation of the Premier League in 1992 was a watershed moment. The new league brought increased revenue through lucrative TV deals, which in turn allowed clubs to invest in better facilities, coaching, and players. Then an incredible influx of foreign talent and managers, starting in the mid-1990s, brought new styles of play and tactical approaches, enhancing the competitiveness of English clubs. Manchester United, of course, under Sir Alex Ferguson, was a pivotal force in the revival of English football in Europe. Their 1991 Cup Winners' Cup victory marked an early success. Participation in European competitions exposed English clubs to different styles of play and higher levels of competition. This experience was crucial in improving the overall standard of English football. The increased financial rewards from European competitions also allowed clubs to attract top talent and invest in youth development. At the same time, English clubs developed their own talent, like Manchester United's class of '92. Investments in stadiums, training facilities, and medical departments contributed to the overall professionalization of English football. And yes, they made their way back to the top for all of these reasons. The shadow of hooliganism lingered, however, affecting the perception of English fans abroad and necessitating efforts to improve fan behavior and safety. This was nothing new at all. And although hooliganism is a thing of the past to this day, we see certain ugly incidents associated with English football. Nevertheless, the game in England has come a long way both on and off the pitch since the European ban of the 1980s. By the end of the 1990s, English teams were once again a formidable force in European football, setting the stage for continued success in the 21st century, when the likes of United, Liverpool, and even Manchester City and Chelsea would go on to rule the continent, with boisterous fan bases following them from Malmo to Milan and everywhere in between. That won't take away from the dark days though, when a cloud covered English football and rained on their parade while the sunny success of the European Cup shone for the rest of Europe. Everton will always wonder what might have been. If you like this video, then make sure to hit subscribe, comment your thoughts below. And we will see you next time.